Hi, this is Dr. Jiha Lee reporting from Room Now from Chicago. And I have here with me Dr. Shivani Garg here to talk about going from prescribing from abstract to realism in the management of prednisone as we're increasingly learning about its risks. So, Dr. Garg, you have an abstract on 1052 where you developed a shared decision guide to communicate the risk about prednisone. What motivated you to study and how did you get to something that is very visually easy to understand?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So, during my clinical practice, prednisone has been an issue in the regards that a lot of times patients symptomatically feel better, but there has been a lot of side effects that comes with prednisone, and explaining all the side effects during a clinic visit can be a lot for a clinician. So that kind of was the genesis of trying to develop simpler tools that patients can understand, as well as it does not take too much time. Using some of the work that we had already done for hydroxychloroquine, HCQ safe, we thought that the next topic that we could address is chronic prednisone use, because there is more and more data that shows that even lower doses of prednisone, such as 10 milligrams, 7.5, or 5 milligrams, are associated with bad outcomes. And our patients are younger, and they're going to live longer with the DMARDs, biologics that are there. So they might have a higher risk of having a fracture or getting hospitalized, having a stroke. So how can we prevent that? And how can we make our patients understand that there are some harms that are associated even if you symptomatically feel better? And how much do you symptomatically feel better in regards of numbers? So that's the genesis of PRED Safe.
I see. And I think that's the important part, translating numbers into information that patients can understand. Like you said, for us, we're very used to thinking about odds ratios, hazard ratios, but that's not how patients think necessarily. So I believe for this tool, you actually have patients informed or involved in the process to design and communicate how they want information conveyed. How did that impact the design of the tool itself?
Yeah, that's a great question again. So it's interesting. There's a lot of literature on health literacy and numeracy particularly. So a lot of times, even me included, early on when I was practicing, I used to bring up, hey, the chance of having a fracture is 22%. So patients were like, what does that mean in regards of me or people like me? So that got me thinking that, well, percentages, odds ratio, how we interpret science as clinician scientists is not the way patients understand. So we need to give them an easier way to understand. So we went back to our patients because they are the ones who are experiencing all these things and want better guidance and want to be involved in decision making, which is very interesting that they want to partner with their healthcare team and be involved at every step. So they told us that we don't understand percentages. Don't show us graphs. Bar graphs, I don't know what it means. And they told us, so we modeled multiple ways of showing data. And then we showed some existing tools which have been created in rheumatoid arthritis, for statins and osteoporosis. And they were like, this data does make sense because we can see that red is bad, green is good. It's easy to understand, and I understand it's like 100 people, and out of that, the chances I can have it is 50. So that is big to me. So we went back and forth showing different ways of doing it, and that's how our patients felt even motivated to share their feedback because they knew it will help them, as well as help several other patients who are living with it. So we had like sequential iterative interviews. We used to show them one version, get their feedback, edit it, show them another version, and then find the best version where they felt most comfortable and had a higher likelihood to recommend to a family member, to a peer, that would you use it? So.
Yeah, I think one of the striking thing was the visual simplicity of the tool, like you said. You use consistent units to show risk per 100 people and use a very clear color of the red being bad and greens. I think for one, like osteoporosis, you could clearly see out of 100 would be 40. In addition to osteoporosis, what other domains or components or risks did you as physicians or patients find that it was important to communicate?
Yeah, so we looked at several domains. So we went back to literature. There's a lot of literature on prednisone. So we wanted to identify what areas harms are classified into and then what areas benefits are classified into. So we started listing down using a systematic review meta-analysis approach the different domains and started pooling data for each domain. So the domains that we came across besides bone fracture risk were damage, any organ damage. We came across cardiovascular disease event risk. Infections was a big one that we came across. And then we came across some other domains such as pregnancy concerns or like issues that can come during pregnancy, diabetes, adrenal insufficiency, but the literature was not enough to create like pool the data. So then we tried to go back to our patients that we have listed, say 10 domains of benefits and maybe 3 domains of harms, or like 10 domains of harms because we're talking about prednisone here, and 3 domains of benefits with lower or higher doses of prednisone. What resonates more? Like, what have you experienced?
Right, and I think the important thing is, like you said, is the communication about the benefits versus the harms. So you've communicated the harms, and what the benefits, what was really nice is to communicate is the perceived benefit about preventing flares or disease activity worth it. And I think you show that very well for combined data between 2 diseases, right? RA and SLE.
Yes.
So is this tool something that can be used across rheumatic diseases or currently specific only for RA or in lupus?
Yeah, excellent question. We do pool data from RA and lupus. The reason being a lot of the flare data comes from RA, where there were randomized controlled trials, and there are observational cohort studies where they tried to, several Canadian groups tried to reduce prednisone and see how many flares happen. So we did pool data, we did run sensitivity analysis and try to identify that rate that we can show our patients. Right now, when we tested, more patients were lupus or had lupus or were living with lupus, and we had a smaller subset for rheumatoid arthritis. How I envision this tool will move forward is that because nobody likes paper these days and we are going electronic, so it might be the opportunity to create a web-based version which lives there and patients can access it themselves as well, though we encourage a physician to go over, or a clinician, nurse, or a pharmacist to go over the tool. And then it becomes more disease specific, so it has the opportunity to click RA. If you have RA, I'm living with RA, and it clicks RA and it opens everything about RA. And it switches to another disease scenario, and as we get more data on other disease scenarios, it could just translate to other diseases, because chronic prednisone use, honestly, it's not just a rheumatology problem, it is problem of pulmonologists, asthmatic patients, ILD patients, and so on. So that's how we envision the tool will go, and but that's the next step for this project.
I think that's wonderful and ambitious, because the prednisone, it's I think what you called it a necessary evil. It's helpful, but there are definite harms. But the communication is important, and this is a patient-informed tool that can be real-time, interactive for use as patients' priorities change or their expectations change. And one of the things about raising awareness is then what then next? It's about getting off the prednisone.
Yes.
And I think your tool also communicates about that as well.
Yes, that's a great point. So what next is always the question. So we do have a taper guide, which is an optional material in the current tool, because our clinicians who were participants as end user or stakeholder feedback, they felt that sometimes giving guidance to maybe a very experienced clinician could be taken plus or minus. So some people need guidance, some people don't need guidance. So we created this optional material which has validated information from European guidelines on steroid taper, particularly led by the endocrinology group, and it shares key details, like if your dose of prednisone is 40 milligrams, then you should taper by X dose every 2 weeks. And these are the symptoms that you should look out for. This is when you should test for cortisol levels, and this is when you should stop the taper, halt the taper, and go slower. So it gives that guidance, and I think, as we were discussing, maybe the next step would be also to start thinking about how we can add the existing shared decision-making tools around biologics, DMARDs, because at the end, the goal is not to just reduce prednisone, but is to control their disease better.
Absolutely.
And controlling disease is where DMARDs or newer medicines come into play. So what is the right medicine for you when we get off prednisone?
So we as a rheumatology community have, over the past couple of years, really gotten to understand and become aware of the risk about low-dose prednisone and chronic use. And now the next step is to communicate that back to our patients, and we may have a tool to make that very visually easy, interpretable in real time. So thank you for sharing the work. And this is Jiha Lee for Room Now in Chicago.